Buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, everyone, and welcome to Latinx YC, where we discuss all the good and the bad and the ugly of U.S. politics from a Latino, Latina, and Latinx perspective. Hello, my name is Clemencia Herrera, and I'm the founder of Moira Studio, a cross-cultural advertising agency that works with progressive political campaigns, organizations, and advocacy initiatives to engage with Latino audiences in an authentic and caring way.
Hola, Clem.
Hello.
And
Hola.
I'm Cecilia Del Cid, an environmental and social justice practitioner, Latin American, immigrant from Guatemala, community weaver, also working on media. In media.
Hola, ¿cómo estás, Ceci?
Bien, mi amor. Gusto de verte.
Qué gusto verte de nuevo. We have arrived at the last episode of season 3, episode 36. Could you believe that?
I know.
36. 36. I mean, we've been talking for like 36 episodes. I mean,
Well, we talk a lot.
I'm fine with talking 36 more. But thank you, everyone, for out there for listening. And for commenting and for sending us DMs for the past 3 seasons, whether it is to, support us or to critique us. We love all of it. And it is for you and with you that we're doing this. So thank you so much. After this episode, we're going to be taking a short break to work on some more awesome content for all of you. And we'll be back with our season 4 on June 6th. Yeah. So today we are super honored to have with us the amazing Maria Martinez. Welcome.
Chico María, bienvenida.
Gracias, Clemencia, Ceci, por invitarme. Estoy bien emocionada por estar aquí con ustedes. Y just thank you so much for inviting me to join you for this conversation.
Yes. If you guys don't know Maria is a native of Newark, New York, and a daughter of Mexican immigrants. She's an organizer and political activist with experience on both electoral and issue advocacy campaigns. Right up my alley. She was recently the Latinx Coalition Director for the Democratic National Committee. And prior to that, she was deputy campaign manager for a New York City mayoral campaign and deputy political director at Climate Power 2020, where she led the campaign's Latinx outreach and strategy. I did some work with Climate Power in 2020 as well. In 2019, she joined the Warren for President campaign as the Southwest Organizing Director before becoming the National Latinx Engagement Director. And in this role, she strategically organized Latinx communities across the country to get out the vote in support of 2020 presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren. What an awesome job that must have been.
So fun.
Yeah. Maria has also worked for 32 BJ SEIU, the New York State Attorney General, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, and the Rural and Migrant Ministry, where she joined the Justice for Farm Workers campaign at 15 years old, organizing youth across New York State to advocate for the Farm Laborers Fair Labor Practices Act. 15 years old.
Started young.
You've had much fight in you since you were young. What an amazing career.
Yeah, I mean, at 15 years old, my parents taught me that, organizing our community, there's nothing better than that.
That's amazing. What an awesome lesson that you could learn that from your parents. So happy that you could join us today. We're gonna sort of jump right into our topic today. So, as I hope that many of you out there know that this year we have midterm elections where we are electing members of Congress and some governors. And what maybe some of you don't know is that midterms have historically had low turnout, which means that less people turn out to vote in midterms. Why that is? Many theories are out there, and the jury's still out. But this year is especially crucial to turn out the vote because Democrat majority in the House is razor thin. We only have Vice President Kamala Harris as a tiebreaker. So if we lose one, we lose majority. And right now the Senate is majority Republican. As you have seen in the Obama era and many other Democratic president eras, having majority Republican Congress means nothing gets done. So, Maria, why do you think it's so important to keep majority?
Oh man, I think that, everything is at stake right now. We saw what happened under the Trump administration, and, we're seeing communities across the country being directly impacted by so many social disparities, from education to healthcare to immigration, climate change, environmental justice. There's just so much that's directly impacting our community and overall communities of color. It's imperative that Latinos have been paying attention to the issues, but like you said, why is turnout so low during the midterms? And I think that's where, people like us who are doing this work need to continue to organize our community. There's so much that's, at stake in November, and there are several campaigns, and the Democratic Party has been, organizing in these communities. But the reality is that, it oftentimes feels like the Latino community is an afterthought. And, we see this time and time again where, our community, we're reaching out to them maybe 3 months, 2 months before an election. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation because, if we're fighting for things like DACA, if we're fighting for things like, women's reproductive rights, if we're fighting for things around economic justice and environmental justice, there's a lot of things that we need to do to educate our community and reach out to the community and let them know that all of these things are at risk. And we know that Democrats have been delivering for Latinos, but we also understand that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so having control and majority of Congress is crucial, so crucial, especially now and especially leading up to the 2024 election, because we're already thinking about that already. And it's just so imperative that Latinos pay attention, and then it's up to us to educate, inform, and do the outreach now.
Yeah, I know for a fact that, I've been involved in many conversations about why it's so important to get Latinos out to vote. There's many reasons, in terms of just statistics, let's just talk about the most obvious thing. We have the numbers. We have the numbers to change an election.
That's right.
And we have seen time and time again that when Latinos go out to vote, elections change. So it's, I don't know, and we've talked about this a little bit, throughout different episodes, but I don't think that Latinos out there know how powerful they can be when they go out to vote. And I think the fact that many years have been, to Maria's point, they've been sort of called at the last minute and all of that has made them think that they're not important, but they truly are.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think we saw these numbers in 2020, right? We saw Arizona, we saw the turnout in Georgia, we saw Nevada, and, that did not happen overnight. It was all of the outreach and community organizing that organizations in those states have been doing for over a decade. And, I applaud them. And because of them, Latinos did turn out in record numbers. But, I think that we should always, right, and continue to do that work and provide these organizations the resources necessary to continue to reach out to Latinos, and to your point, empowering Latinos too, because their voice matters so much. And luckily we have so many powerhouses across the Latino political spectrum that are, reaching out directly to Latinos. And Senator Alex Padilla doing so much to reach the Latino community, and my tios and tias are in awe of just his background and history. And there are people like that who have great intentions and are doing everything they can to fight for Latinos every day, but like you said, empowering Latinos and demonstrating to them that the Democratic Party cares, and we've always cared. But again, it's reaching out to Latinos early on and educating them, informing them of all of the things that are at stake, and also let them know that their voice is a tool, a powerful tool, and also ensuring that they come out to vote, especially in the midterms, because while the presidential election is very, very important, state and local elections matter as well.
Yeah. And what do you think in your experience doing organizing for so long? What do you think works the best when you're doing outreach with Latinos? What is that aha, or like with the aha moments that not one, but several aha moments that you've had, realizations of, this works? Because I think that we all want to, do that some more.
No, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I started when I was 15 in New York, organizing the farm worker community and young people across the state, majority who were young Latinos who, were just getting involved in their community. They had no idea that their city was, being directly impacted by environmental injustices. And so, when I would work or directly with these groups or just hear their stories, it resonated with me. And then I realized I too am a victim, and I too have been impacted, and my parents have been impacted. And one of the aha moments that I had was, when I was working with young people in New York, we were protesting for the New York State Dream Act at the time. And at the time when DAPA was part of the conversation, working with all of these kids and joining their immigrant justice fight, I later confronted my own immigrant justice fight, and I realized I have a story. My story is powerful, and the importance of storytelling is just so powerful that other people immediately are drawn in because they resonate with you and they understand the pain, they understand the frustrations. And so because, other folks might be afraid to even speak up or share their experiences, it's important that those of us who have, the ability to share these stories, it's important for us to speak up, because we need to be their voice. We need to be that, we need to be front and center and be that voice for them, because highlighting these crucial issues and bringing, shedding light on the issue will garner the attention of press, and then candidates will pay attention, and then politicians will pay attention, and then it just starts a massive movement. El Pueblo Unido is a thing. We've seen it over the years. We've seen how movements have brought about change in our communities, and those aha moments that I've had, over the years, it's a beautiful thing because it's led to actual change. Passing the farm worker bill in New York, passing the Dream Act in New York, all of these things are real, and we have to remind ourselves why we do this organizing and this outreach in the first place, letting Latinos know that we too have suffered, we too have had these experiences, and we're here to hold your hand, join you in the fight, and continue to do this every day until los de arriba escuchen, until all of these electeds and candidates and politicians hear us.
Maria, I hear you talk, and I recognize how much this is a movement that is, a grassroots, bottom up, a lot of like neighbor to neighbor, at these very horizontal. I myself find very few candidates that I am excited about. I find that even Democratic candidates sometimes are not really, or they will come with a platform that is speak to our needs, and then once people are empowered, like so many of the Latino things, or many of the things that could affect Latinos have been kind of fallen by the wayside of this administration. Like there are some low-hanging fruit policies that could be implemented by the president and will have very real effect. We're one of the communities that has been most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Latina women have have very high dropout numbers from the employment, from employment. So what are the things that excite us? Who is out there? Why are these candidates not, I feel like they think that they have the vote, and that also there is not real follow through. So why will we continue voting for them if at the end nothing is going to change? And that is what we've discussed so many times. Then someone comes and that feels that is much more blunt, much more audacious, much more irreverent, and they go like, you know what, everyone always says the same thing, nothing ever changes, I'm going with that one, even though it's not someone that will benefit us at all. If we might belong to the Republican Party, but like we are exhausted. I mean, I am like
This is why I have Ceci on this podcast.
No, I mean, listen, yo entiendo la frustración. I mean,
I'm not frustrated all the time. I'm just like tired from
seriously, right? We have to be real. Yeah, we have to be real. We need those reality checks. Like, okay, I've been screaming and kicking and yelling for so long, so many years. What's going on? No, I totally resonate with that. I mean, how long have we been waiting for comprehensive immigration reform? I get it.
Something lower, like, what would you do for our communities for like student debt to be raised? That's to some level. And we think
I have some theories. And sometimes I've heard Congress people say, I have not heard from my constituents on their needs, and if like people don't show up and like complain. And specifically there's like this list of priorities, right, that Congress has, and the people who are screaming the loudest, like el que no llora no come. So it's like the people that are screaming out the most or complaining the most, those are the ones that go into priorities. So it's like, and Maria, you please correct me if I'm wrong, but the point of like telling people to make their voice heard is because if the voices aren't there, they're not gonna do anything about them.
That's a good point, and I feel like I personally have experienced that where, when I, was working for a Congress member, they were doing, a lot of outreach to the Latino community, but it often felt like, whether or not we were, having daily check-ins or however, often outreach we would make to the Latino community, I took it upon myself to ensure that we brought in these Latino activists and people within this district, because it's important to have that voice in the room. And so, this member of Congress was very open with ensuring that we had representation in the room. And so, and like to kind of sidetrack a little bit, which is why I truly believe that empowering our young people now and giving them the resources now, paving the way for them now, is extremely important, because then they will then come in and be that representation that we need on the inside, if we're looking at it that way. And for me, it was a great experience being in that office, because I was able to reach out to these big Latino organizers in the district, and therefore we saw a lot more Latinos in the office. We were able to talk more about certain issues. We were able to just have more of a diverse room. And so that was an accomplishment for me there. But to Ceci's point, where we're doing all of this work and we're doing all of this outreach and we're doing all of these rallies and protests, and the candidates are promising X, Y, and Z, and it's taking years for us to see that, I don't know. I mean, I understand that, and I feel like I've been on the other side where I'm rallying and I'm lobbying and I'm trying to get things done and hoping to make them understand and make myself visible. I have to keep pushing. And, I think that there are a lot of theories, right, that we can, that we probably have around this, but, it can be discouraging. And because of the adversity that Latinos face, and in my case, when my parents were deported under the Trump administration, that was the fire behind my work. That was what drove me to continue to do this work, regardless of how, upset or frustrated, angry I was. Because if I'm going through this, I immediately think about the children at the border who are being separated. And while it's taking years for us to accomplish comprehensive immigration reform or make it easy for refugees or asylum seekers to get status, the fight's there, and we have to continue doing that work and continuing to hold candidates accountable. You're going to say these things, you gotta deliver for us.
I agree with some points. With some, I might defer. I think that these administrations and other administrations and politically in the United States, like we heard all the time about refugees. There's now a war going on in this world. There's refugees from Ukraine coming to the southern border, and they are coming through. And then there is still policies from the previous administration being implemented against brown bodies, Latino bodies, in which we know that when there is willingness, there is possibility and avenue. So to me, it's always this question about, like, I understand that politics are a dance. It's a compromise. It's a compromise in which neither you nor you nor you, neither one of us is going to feel fully satisfied. It's a trade-off, right? All of us are going to walk out of a room feeling a little unsatisfied because we didn't accomplish everything. But that is what the dance is. And at the same time, I feel like there's some certain, like, we always sitting at the chair, like, we prepare the dance, we decorate the room, we play the music, we do the entertainment, and then we're sitting in a chair. So for me,
but are we really? I mean, are there enough numbers sitting in places of power to voice our needs? And this is where it's really important to elect also Latinos and Latinas and Latinx
for sure
to positions of power, because as we learned during the Women's History Month series that we had, when women get to positions of power, then more things get passed for women that benefit women. So it's like I don't know. I agree with Maria and the fact that it's like we can't give up, and we also can't just like take things laid down. Like and also we can't expect other people to do things for us. Like we gotta sort of like take it ourselves. And this is where I think the biggest lesson for me has been in trying to engage Latinos. Like, yes, it's frustrating, but are we just gonna give up and just like disengage and not do anything? Or I don't know. It's like, do we just take things as they go? And
I'm not advocating for disengagement at all. I don't think we have it in us. I think that we're here to stay, and we're here to keep pushing forward. Like, that is just the nature, the baseline. What I am questioning is, because we're talking about Democratic candidates or like independent candidates or candidates from any, like looking at platforms and what platforms from any candidate is presented, and we decide that we're going to support with our time, with our volunteering time, with our support in dollars, $3, $5, because that also needs to be kind of thought to us, like, oh, we can contribute to a campaign. Oh, I can go to my representative's office and ask for help. I have done that, right, in a moment, and I didn't know I could until someone was like, you should reach out to such and such, like, immigration liaison, and I was like, oh, let me do that, and I did, right, like, but if no one if I don't have access to any of that, I don't know that I can do it. So this is part of the outreach, and I think that we as community are getting better, but I also think we are burnt out. We are stressed from the pandemic, and on top of that, we are the ones who've been doing the organizing, and the candidates are not dedicating enough resources. We have talked about that before, how we're like a booty call at the end because nos dan por sentado, right? Like, we're given. We're Latinos, and now it has been proven that Latinos are swing voters, that we are not a whole group, and I'm thinking of places like Arizona, where one of their senators is being one of the biggest, obstructionists for this administration, and and I know that there are Latinos like organizing heavily there to try to change things, but like I'm more thinking about like, is the Democratic Party getting the message? That's, I guess, where my question is coming from.
Yeah, I think, to add on to that, I think it's very, very important, again, that that voice in the room that will push our ideas and strategy forward on how to reach out to Latinos is extremely important,
Absolutely.
And I think that candidates, campaigns, or whoever their staffers are, if they're not a person of color, if they're not Latino, they need to bring in those people to come in and talk about messaging, talk about the platform. Because like you said, they have this platform, and then Latinos as an afterthought, they say, well, this is how my plan is going to impact Latinos. 50% of Latinos will be impacted by X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. But if we approach campaigns differently and incorporate how immediately, their climate agenda or environmental justice agenda is going to directly impact Latinos and African Americans and AAPI folks and, whomever, is thinking about that to then write your messaging and figuring out the statistics beforehand, that will help you create a platform where it doesn't come off as, I want to say, pandering, right? Because once we see candidates write their platforms, then we say, well, the child tax credit has impacted Latinos. While that's important data, I'm not saying it's not important data. What I'm saying is, instead of it being an afterthought, it should definitely be incorporated from the very beginning and thought about from the very beginning. And ensuring, again, that we have these voices in the room, right? And I think that 2020 was a big eye-opener. I want to say 2016 was an eye-opener, but I want to say 2020 was also an eye-opener because we saw Latinos turn out. And we also have to acknowledge the fact, too, that Latinos, we were seeing them shift a little to the right. And we have to realize, too, that, what is the type of outreach that needs to be done to ensure that they are, becoming more left, and also ensuring that younger progressives, younger Latinos are aware that this is happening, and I think that a lot of people now, at least the kids that I've worked with, or a lot of other youth that I've worked with, they don't even realize they're progressive until I bring up a certain issue. And I was like, whoa, come join the left, And so it's that type of outreach and conversations that we need to be having now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point in the fact that young Latinos seem to be much more involved in, politics or civic engagement, because like, it's so funny because statistically, Anglos it's the older people that get more engaged. They're the ones that are like voting, and the ones that go to the town halls, and they're the ones that like go and complain and talk to their Congress people. And older Latinos have they're sort of checked out. They're not really doing that. It is the younger Latinos, so it's kind of like the opposite of the Anglos, that are the ones that are, getting more engaged and like more educated, and they care more. So it's like, it's really exciting to me, definitely, but it's really crucial that we like play our cards right in order to, because many of them don't, if their families have never been really engaged in politics, they're not going to even know like what is a progressive, what is conservative, what does a city councilor do, what does a senator do. Like most people, like, yes, there is a class in high school, and that class is an advanced placement. I know because I took that class. That's the only way that I know, but it's not taught in regular classes. Like I don't understand what.
Or it's a college course.
Yeah, which is an elective that nobody takes, and like because it seems boring, blah blah blah. And it's just, young people are very uneducated. They have to go out and look for the information on their own, which is, they already have so many things like coming at their faces that is hard. So it's so important to play our cards right.
I have to say that I do appreciate, your perspective about the importance of highlighting the impacts for our community in the messaging. I think that, and we have said it, and I've said it in this podcast many times, that I don't feel the Democratic Party is as good and honing in with very small, very attractive and catchy talking points. They just aren't. Like, I was like, I don't know why. Like, go find, and that to me is really important. I think most people, and I think we also communicate a lot by word of mouth. Es que la vecina me dijo, es que la tía dice que fulano. So I think also adjusting that line. So we definitely, that's why grassroots work, because that's why we have always built community. But we also believe the opinions of the people that we know more than the opinions of, of like a messaging we see for certain things. And I think that's when, to your point of generational differences, I think our older generations from Latin America are very much in the deep scare from the red scare from communists, and like this idea of being leftist, and most people don't understand what a communist is. They couldn't they couldn't tell you what that word means if you asked them. What's the difference with the socialist?
The left here is
there is no left in the United States. We already discussed this.
Right.
It's in the center. There is like the center, and then there is like 100 points over there to the right, and there's 100 points over here to the left, and they're like center 10. No, center 5.
That's what Europeans tell me. Europeans are like,
there is no left in the United States.
The left in the US is not left.
It's not a left in the United States. We have agreed to this. But there is ancient progressiveness, and I think that a lot of it has to do with messaging and how scared our communities are. Like, generations, I hear on my folks, I hear with friends of my parents when they're like, don't tell me that you're a communist. And I'm like, can you describe to me what is a communist? What do you mean by a communist? And they can't, right? There is an image. They might think of the movie. They might think of like the Soviet Union. Like they might think in Latin America of Cuba, or like it's Venezuela. And I'm like, that is a very bad, like there is a very extreme example of populism on the left. And so like, but there's also very extreme examples of populism on the right, and we have one of them in Brazil, for example. So but most of us don't understand. So like, I appreciate you bringing in that children or like younger folks who might find themselves in a mixed status family recognize that they are carrying, that they want to transform things because they're looking for avenues for their own parents, older siblings, tias and tios, la abuelita, like they're carrying that with them, and that sucks. And they're also feeling like empowered and thinking, how can I'm going to be able to vote for my family? What am I going to choose? And also recognizing that they've grown in an era which we speak about many things more openly. Whether people want to say gay or not, people understand what LGBTQ community is. They're not going to put it back in the bottle. So I think our youth might not have that language, and I appreciate you saying how important it is to organize them and include that generation. Because if I think of one of the greatest climate change activism was a teenager.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one beautiful thing that I experienced in New York, recently, a few weeks ago, not sure if you've heard of the Excluded Worker Fund in New York State. We joined excluded workers who marched from, I believe they started in Long Island and ended in Albany, to protest Governor Hochul. And we joined them on this march, and everyone's chanting, everyone's rallying, and I'm with all of these young people who are 15, 16 years old, and I saw myself in them just marching, joining the fight. And it's funny because one of the kids invited their mom to this, and they love their kids, so they're gonna apoyarlos and everything, right? And the mom is like, so ¿de qué se trata esto? ¿Qué es esto? And like I'm explaining it, right? I'm explaining it as their son is like chanting and holding up this sign, and it was just so beautiful to see that the love for our kids, right? We're so we're always going to be there for them and support them and be there for them, that at the same time learn from them as well. And I saw that right there and then, where this woman, una señora ya en sus 50s, was like, it was her first march, and she had no idea why she was there. And now she's continuing to come out to these actions. And it's like, in a way, in order for us to get to, older Latinos, or even if moderate older Latinos, right? This is a way. Maybe it's through our kids.
Yeah.
And we're informing parents, and that's just strengthening our movement and our community.
Yes, as soon as the door is open, we're hoping that the light keeps coming in. So this is all the time that we have. Maria, thank you so much. This was such an interesting, awesome conversation.
No, thank you both. I love this. I love the passion that we all have for this. I mean, you have so much work to do.
I know. I hearing you speak, I was getting goosebumps, and I was like, yes, this is exciting.
I kind of want to go find the march right now, just like.
Listen, I think that they're going back to in public, like, climate strikes on Fridays in some places. I know that for a while they were like virtual, and I'm hearing that they're coming back, so I'm really excited.
So great.
Yes.
Maria, is there a place that people can go to take a look if there's any protests or any kind of rallies or anything in their state, anywhere, any kind of organization that they can reach out to see if they can get involved?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, the first question would be, what is something that you're super passionate about? When I think about environmental justice, I immediately think about, Food and Water Watch in New York. And I'm thinking about New York because I'm from New York. So I think about all of these other EJ groups. But I would recommend, start, in your state. Think about, what's important to you. If it's on immigration, look up some immigrant rights groups. Mostly all of these groups have an events calendar, and you can easily look up what they have going on. And if it's not in person, virtual. There are a lot of national organizations that are doing things every week, if not every day. I think about United We Dream. They're so awesome. They constantly have actions going on. If you're passionate about DACA immigration, Sunrise Movement, they're always, out there doing so many rallies. I love them. So I would start there, just thinking about what's important to you and research some of these organizations in your state.
I love that. Start with something that's important to you. That's awesome.
I think that is super key to avoid burnout. Just give your energy to the stuff that brings you more joy. Because we also celebrate Latino joy all the time, every day.
Yeah, because that's what's gonna give you the energy to keep going when things get tough.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Agree.
So thank you very much, Maria.
Well,
I appreciate it.
Before we go, just wanted to remind all of you that this is the last episode of the season. We're going to be taking a short break to work on some more amazing content. We have some really awesome guests coming, and we'll be back in June 6th. If you want to get in touch with Maria, her Twitter handle is at _ Maria C. Martinez or C. Martinez.
You got it.
I got it. And to get in touch with us, Latinx YZ Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can email me, Clem at latinxyzpod.com. And if you like this podcast or any other episode, please share it with your friends. If you want your friends to come and protest with you, share this episode with you so you can get them all pumped up.
And invite me to the protest.
Exactly. And tweet at Maria so she can come to the protest with you.
Excellent.
Thanks so much out there, everyone.
Gracias.
Have a great rest of the month, and welcome to the spring.